or within ESCAPE, we are doing this within the context of a clinical trial. So maybe I'll turn the floor over here to Christoph, and if you could give us a little bit of information about what is the clinical trial, why do we even need one?
Sure. Well, as you heard, it's a very exciting idea to provide that sort of care management to patients, and studies from the United States, mainly from the United States, have shown that it works for some groups of patients. But it has not been shown that such blended collaborative care works within the different European healthcare context at all, and it has not been shown to be really helpful for multimorbid patients. So why did we choose multimorbid patients? We think these patients are in particular need of someone who coordinates the care delivered by multiple different specialists. And these people are often, for medical reasons, unable to navigate the complex system, as we already heard. So multimorbidity is a very good starting point for testing such an intervention in Europe. And that's why Dagmar already mentioned we have that multi-professional and multidisciplinary specialist team that really oversees the whole process. The second thing is we chose one index disease, that's heart failure, which is very prevalent in elderly patients and is in most cases associated with other illnesses and with substantial emotional and psychosocial burden. So these people are really in need. We believe they need better help than they on average receive nowadays, but in order to demonstrate that it really works better than the fragmented care people usually receive, we need a study. And the study we're doing is what people call a comprehensive cohort study with an embedded randomized controlled trial. That's very complex. What we are actually doing is we are looking for patients who are multimorbid, who have heart failure, who are psychologically distressed, and who are interested in taking part in a research project. And in the first step, we look if the intervention we would like to offer really fits those patients' needs, whether they fulfill the so-called inclusion criteria. And we do that not only once, but twice in order to be sure that temporal problems haven't just resolved and people don't need any more help. We want to really address those people who have chronic problems. So if they are still sick and still psychologically distressed at 2 or 3 months after our initial assessment, we ask patients if they are interested in possibly participating in our clinical trial, which is a chance of 50% to receive the blended collaborative care intervention for some of the patients. The other 50% by chance just stay within the cohort and are observed for the next years in order to see how their illness develops. And the main thing we are interested in is how it develops in terms of what patients feel and what patients realize in their lives. And therefore we chose health-related quality of life as our primary endpoint. So we cannot just measure one simple blood marker or one X-ray photo or so, because people have so different illnesses, and the most global and most patient-relevant endpoint is quality of life, and that's why that's our primary target, to improve that.
Perfect. So maybe a moment in case some of our listeners aren't so well versed. Could we get a definition of what is multimorbidity and maybe an example? And we're talking about quality of life measures. What are we looking at?
Yeah, in terms of multimorbidity, I just wanted to add, maybe it's not answer to what you were asking, but I think maybe it's important to say that usually when people talk about multimorbidity, it's at least two kind of diseases, let's say cardiovascular disease, and then maybe they have COPD. But I think what is unique about ESCAPE is that we have chosen also to include mental health. And at least when I sometimes hear people talking about multimorbidity, they are not necessarily including the mental health issues Although we know, let's say if you're just looking at patients with cardiovascular disease, if they had anxiety or depression, then we know they have worse quality of life, they have a greater risk of morbidity and mortality. And that's what I've just wanted to emphasize, the importance of that in ESCAPE. And the second thing is also that why multimorbidity, although Christoph answered very nicely, but maybe just to add also that we are looking into a global public health crisis in terms of that physicians have become much better at treating many patients, but that means that they also live longer, and thereby also the risk of multimorbidity. So also from that point of view, ESCAPE is very important, and hopefully we can show that it works, but that remains to be seen.
So maybe I comment on your question regarding quality of life, and that's more or less a philosophical question, because what is good life? That differs very much for different people, and it would be nice to dig more into the details here, but there are international standards how we define quality of life in clinical studies, and usually we ask the patient. Of course, we can also ask the carer, and we are actually asking the carers, but what we are asking is how well they feel and how able they are in their everyday life to perform their daily tasks, in terms of physical ability, in terms of emotional ability and well-being, and in terms of social ability and connectedness. And we're using standardized questionnaires that are filled in by both patients and the carers to summarize these dimensions, and we calculate indices where we can say, okay, quality of life has improved from 40 points to 60 points on a 100-point scale, for example.